Welcome to the VoiceMe Podcast, information and advice on the world of voiceover presented by voiceme.co.za, the South African search directory for voice artists and related services. I'm Andrew Sutherland, founder of VoiceMe, and in this episode, I'm talking about live directed voiceover sessions, and more specifically, how to handle them without the panic. So for a lot of voice artists, live direction can feel like a completely different sport, especially if you're new in the industry and haven't got the experience yet. Recording alone is one thing. You have your script, your timing, your pace, and your own process. And you can stop, restart, try a line 3 different ways, take a sip of water, swear quietly at a sentence that should have been much easier than it was, and then record it again as if you've never known struggle in your entire life. And that's just one environment. A live directed session is quite another. Now, suddenly people are listening in real time. Someone says, "Can we try that a bit more natural?" Someone else says, "Maybe slightly more energy." Another voice pops in with, "I still want it warm though." And somewhere in the background, there's almost always one person who says absolutely nothing for 15 minutes, only to suddenly arrive with a note that changes the direction of the entire read. And if you're not used to it, it can be nerve-wracking. It can throw off your breathing, your confidence, your instincts, and your timing. Sometimes even your ability to pronounce perfectly ordinary words that you've known since childhood. There's something about being listened to live that can make a perfectly capable voice artist sound as though language itself has become an optional extra. So if that has ever happened to you, or if live sessions still make you tense, this episode is for you. Live directed sessions are not just about performance, they're about listening. Adaptability, composure, communication, preparation, and most importantly, staying useful when the room gets busy. You don't need to be the most theatrical person in the session. You don't need to impress everyone with 7 wildly different reads. What you do need is a solid process. How to prepare, how to listen to direction properly, how to respond without spiraling, how to stay calm when notes conflict, and how to keep the session moving in a way that builds confidence in you. Live sessions are one of the places where repeat work is built. Clients remember the voice artist who made a live session feel easy, not just the voice artist who sounded good. So today, let's talk about how to become that person. Firstly, a live session isn't an audition. By the time you're in a live directed session, the audition is already done and over. You were chosen, booked, already approved. It may feel like an audition because people are listening and reacting in real time, but the booking happened before you walked in. You're not there to prove you deserve to be in the room. You are already in it. A lot of nerves in live sessions come from a subtle feeling that you still need to earn your place, and that can make you perform defensively. You start overreaching, overthinking, second-guessing your instincts, trying to impress instead of trying to solve the brief. But the session isn't about proving your worth. It's about collaboration. Your job is to help the team get to the result they need. Sometimes that means bringing an intelligent first read. Sometimes it means pivoting quickly. Sometimes it means taking a note and adjusting it with no fuss. And sometimes it means staying calm while 3 people describe the same tonal note in 3 completely different ways. That's the work. And once you stop seeing the live session as a test and start seeing it as a collaborative problem-solving space, a lot of the panic starts to loosen. So why does live direction feel harder? Let's be honest, live sessions can feel hard for very understandable reasons. Firstly, there's no buffer. When you're alone, you can experiment privately. In a live session, the experiment is heard. Then notes come quickly, sometimes before you have fully settled, sometimes before you've even had a proper chance to find the shape of the copy. And then there are often multiple listeners, and multiple listeners often means multiple opinions. The energy of other people enters your process, their urgency, their uncertainty, their excitement, their indecision, their silence, their bad internet connection, all of it. And Lastly, there's a strange psychological thing that happens when we know people are listening. We become more self-aware. And self-awareness is useful right up until the point where it becomes self-consciousness. That's where things wobble. You start hearing yourself while speaking and become too aware of every inflection. You begin editing in real time while performing, and that's usually when the read stiffens up. So if live sessions sometimes make you feel less fluent than you are in private, that doesn't mean you're not good at this. It just means you're human. The goal isn't to eliminate that pressure completely. The goal is to build a method that keeps you steady inside of it. So before we get into preparation, it's worth naming something that's often assumed but rarely mentioned out loud. Live directed sessions in South Africa happen in two genuinely different environments, and the experience of each is different in some important ways. The first is the professional studio. You're booked in, you travel to the venue, you step into a booth that someone else has built with gear that someone else has set up, and you work with a studio engineer who manages the technical side while you focus entirely on the performance. The director or client may also be in the control room on the other side of the glass, dialing in remotely, or even both. The second situation is the home setup. You're working from your own recording space, managing your own gear, your own routing, your own levels, your own talkback, and the client is piped in remotely. You're the voice artist and the studio wrapped into one. In South Africa, the professional studio session is far more common. Most working voice artists here are not running their own recording studios from home. They're being booked into studios and arriving for sessions. That's the default experience for most of the industry. But both scenarios require the same core skills: listening well, taking direction, staying calm under pressure, and adapting quickly. But the preparation between a home recording and a studio session recording is quite different. So let's talk about both. If you're heading into a pro studio for a directed session, your preparation is less about gear and more about arrival. Start with the practical side. Know where you're going and get there early. Not 5 minutes early enough to walk in, get settled, use the bathroom, drink some water, and step into the booth without any trace of rushing. Studio time is client time. If you arrive flustered, that energy carries into the read. Being early is free. Being late isn't, and the cost isn't just the session fee. If you've been sent your script ahead of time, bring it in a form you can mark. Some artists prefer printed hard copies, others work well off a tablet or a monitor screen. Both are fine as long as you can make notes quickly and clearly during the session. Marking emphasis, pronunciation decisions, and the client's preferences in real time is one of the most practical skills in directed sessions, and we're going to come back to that. Know the copy before you arrive. This isn't optional. You don't need to be locked into a single interpretation. Overcommitting too early can actually work against you when notes start coming in. But you should arrive knowing what the script is trying to do, where the tricky phrases sit, where timing pressure may build, what the brand implies, and where pronunciation might be risky. Familiarity without rigidity. The client doesn't want to spend studio time waiting for you to get comfortable with the script. That comfort should happen on your own time. That said, sometimes you'll only get the script when you walk through the door. That's another reason to arrive early, so you can do your script checks before the session officially kicks off. Then there's the physical and mental side of prep, which matters more than people realize, by the way. Your voice is an instrument that lives in your body, and it needs a moment before it performs well. Arrive warm. Do a brief vocal warm-up before you walk in, not a full performance, but just enough to get the mechanism moving. Don't treat the car ride or the walk from the parking lot as dead time. Use it to your advantage. Now, if you're doing a directed session remotely from your own space, that preparation shifts, because now you're responsible for the technical side as well as the performance. That's a larger load, which is precisely why getting it sorted well in advance matters so much. Your setup must be ready before anyone joins. Not mostly ready, not should be fine, absolutely ready. Mic, interface, headphones, your recording chain, session template, talkback, internet connection, script open or printed and clearly labeled, notifications off, phone silenced, door closed, water within reach. The more of that you sort before the session starts, the less mental noise you carry into the read. Panic loves loose ends. If even a small part of your brain is wondering whether your levels are right, that's energy you're not giving to the script. And clients can feel that even if they can't name it or see it. Then performance prep and mental prep are exactly the same as for a pro studio session. Know the copy, arrive warm, breathe, remind yourself what the session is for. The difference is that when you're working from your own setup, you're also the engineer. So get the technical side squared away first so you can set it aside and focus on the performance. My next bit of advice is if you're working in a professional studio, there's someone in that session who is often underused by voice artists, the engineer. And here's what the engineer is doing while you're in the booth. They're setting levels, monitoring your audio, managing the session chain, communicating between the booth and the client, tracking takes, and catching technical problems before they become your problem. They're listening very carefully, often more carefully and to more things at once than anyone else in the room. And in many sessions, they're the most technically informed person there. Most voice artists don't use that enough. In fact, most treat the engineer as just another person in the room. So don't do that. When you arrive, introduce yourself if you've not worked together before. That's not just courtesy, it establishes you as a pro and opens a line of communication that will serve you throughout the session. Then ask if there's anything you need to know about the booth. Let them know your monitoring preferences up front if you need more or less of yourself in your headphone mix. That's not being precious, that's giving the engineer the information they need to help you perform well. Then during the session, the engineer is often your fastest route to flagging a technical issue. A click in the signal, a level drop, ambient noise that crept in. If something feels off in your headphones, say so. Don't just push through a take you're unhappy with technically and hope no one noticed. The engineer almost certainly did notice. And also remember, the engineer's job is the same as yours, to make the session work. That puts you on the same side. And in many ways, they're your closest ally, the one person positioned between you and a bad take that might otherwise slip through. So treat them accordingly, be easy to work with, communicate clearly, say thank you. Studios are small communities. Engineers talk to producers who talk to clients who talk to other clients. Being the voice artist who is professional and easy to work with in session isn't a small thing. That reputation moves through those networks. The opening moments of a live session do more work than people realize. How you greet people, how calm you sound, whether you seem prepared, whether you can follow the flow of introductions without becoming stiff. And clients form impressions quickly, not because they're judging harshly, it's just human. If the session begins smoothly, everyone relaxes. If it begins with confusion or delays or obvious panic, then the room is a very different beast. For pro studio sessions, your opening includes how you walk in, how you settle, how you interact with the engineer, and how you greet whoever is in the control room or on the remote call. All of that is the first impression. For home setup sessions, it includes whether your audio works immediately, whether you're clearly ready, and whether you sound grounded and present from the first exchange. Either way, friendly, normal, and ready. You just need to sound like someone who has done this before and can be trusted with the session. Confirm that they can hear you clearly. Ask whether they would like one exploratory read first or whether they have a specific direction in mind, and listen carefully to whatever framing they offer before the first take. That tells the room that you're engaged and professional. Then the first read in a live session is usually not the final answer, and it doesn't need to be. A lot of artists put enormous pressure on the opening take. They want it to be right immediately. They want everyone to love it. They want to show they understood the brief in one shot. That can make the first take overly cautious or oddly over-designed. The better approach is to treat the first read as an intelligent sketch. Grounded, thoughtful, professional, but still open. You're showing the room your instincts. You're giving them something to react to. You're helping the team locate the right feel. That's all. Sometimes your first read will land beautifully and the room will say, yes, that's basically it. Great. Sometimes it won't. That's also fine. It just means the collaboration has begun. Then once you're in the session, you need to listen to direction properly. This is a huge part of live session success. A lot of people think taking direction is about changing your performance quickly. It is, but first it's about listening properly, not just hearing words, understanding the client's intent. Because clients don't always describe direction in actor-friendly language. They might say things like, can it feel a little more blue, less salesy, more smile but not too much? Can we make it feel younger, more natural, a bit more premium, not so voiceovery? Can it sound like you're talking to one person? We want it warmer but also slightly more elevated. Can it be softer but still cut through with energy? Some of those notes are clear enough, some are vague, and some are contradictory, and some are really emotional descriptions of a problem they don't yet know how to articulate. And your job is to decode those notes. So when someone says less salesy, they may mean less push, less smile, less speed, less emphasis, less announcer energy, or less obvious persuasion. When someone says more natural, they may mean more ease, fewer polished inflections, less scripted rhythm, or more conversational thought flow. The note is the surface. The intent is underneath it. And the more you learn to hear the intent of the note, the more directable you become in live sessions. Now let's look at what happens inside the room, how to handle pressure, conflict, silence, and the moments where things go sideways. There's quite a lot here, so I've broken it down into 15 things. Number 1, sometimes you should ask a question. Not every note needs a clarifying question. In fact, if you ask too many, the session can start to bog down. Often the best move is to simply try the adjustment. But sometimes a brief clarification saves everyone time, especially when the note is vague, or two people in the room are clearly describing different things. So you might ask, when you say more natural, would you like that slightly more underplayed and conversational, or just looser in rhythm? Or, just to make sure I'm moving in the right direction, do you want more warmth emotionally, or more softness in the delivery? Or even, would it help if I gave you 2 quick options, one a little more grounded and one a little brighter? Those are useful questions because they narrow the field. They don't challenge the client. They help translate their notes. And that's what you want. Number 2, don't defend your previous take. If you get a note, take the note. Don't explain why you made the earlier choice. Don't defend the version that did not land. Don't say, I thought that was what you wanted, even if it was. The room just needs your adjustment, not your explanation. A calm, okay, got it, and a good pivot is far more impressive than a clever explanation. But that doesn't mean you need to suppress your judgment completely. There may be moments where your expertise is genuinely useful, around timing or clarity or script flow, but the default mode in a directed session should be receive, translate, adjust, deliver. That rhythm builds trust. Number 3, what to do when notes conflict. This will happen. Person 1 will say, can we make it more upbeat? Person 2 says, I actually like the restraint. Person 3 says, maybe it needs to be warmer. Person 4, who hasn't said anything until now, says, it still feels too polished. And there you are trying to work out whether this script wants to sell moisturizer, announce a merger, or read a bedtime story to a nervous exec. When that happens, your job isn't to solve the politics of the room. Your job is to help the room hear options clearly. So a useful move is to say, happy to give you 2 quick options so you can compare. Then do one version leaning slightly in one direction and one leaning slightly in the other. Not wildly different, just clearly contrasted enough to help them decide. People often don't know what they want until they hear what they don't want. Your options give them edges, and once they hear the contrast, the room often becomes much clearer. Actually, yes, the second one, but with slightly less smile. Great, now you have a direction to go for. Number 4, stay calm under pressure. When nerves spike, many artists do one of two things. They either shrink too much and become hesitant, or they overcorrect and go really big. Big is rarely the answer. In most modern commercial and corporate spaces, going bigger when the room is uncertain usually creates more distance, not less. A better rule is stay small, stay precise. More warmth can be a small shift. Less polish can be a small shift. More authority can be a small shift. Live session confidence often looks like controlled flexibility, not dramatic reinvention of the whole read. Number 5, pace yourself. Directed sessions can be surprisingly tiring, not just vocally but mentally. You're reading, listening, adjusting, tracking notes, maintaining tone, and staying socially present all at once. It's a lot to carry. So don't rush yourself unnecessarily. Take the beat you need before a take. Breathe. Reset your body. Let the lines settle in your head. This is just a tiny moment of reset that often gives a much better take than charging forward because you're afraid of looking slow. Drink water, mark the script, protect your energy. If a session is long, that will matter. Number 6, mark on your script what changes. As I said before, one of the most practical skills in live sessions is quick script marking, and it applies whether you're in a pro studio booth or sitting behind your own mic at home. If the room likes a specific emphasis, mark it. If a line keeps being revisited, mark it. If they want a pronunciation done a certain way, mark it. If legal phrasing must stay exact, mark it. If there's a timing-sensitive sentence, mark it. Don't rely on memory under pressure. Your future self will thank you. A well-marked session creates continuity. A poorly tracked one creates confusion, and especially when pickups come around after the session and you're trying to reconstruct decisions that felt clear at the time and now definitely are not. Professionalism often looks boring from the outside, but it saves jobs. Number 7. Technical confidence helps performance confidence. If you're in a pro studio, technical confidence isn't about knowing how to run the desk. That's the engineer's job. Your technical confidence in a pro studio is about knowing how to communicate with the engineer clearly and without drama. Know your own preferences. Know how much of yourself you want in your headphone mix, how loud you like to monitor, whether you need a little more or less of the room. Be able to describe what you're experiencing if something feels off. If you say, there's something odd in my headphones, can we check the levels? That's useful. If you say, it sounds weird, that doesn't help anybody. It's also worth being aware of what's normal and what's not. If you hear a weird sound in your headphones that wasn't there before, or a click on a particular phrase or a sudden drop in your monitor level, these are worth flagging with the engineer. They probably heard it too, but it's worth double-checking. If you're working from your own home setup, technical confidence means something a bit deeper. Genuine comfort with your entire system, not just being able to record. Know how your setup behaves. Know how to set levels. Know what to do if the client says they're hearing something weird. Know how to export and name files quickly and clearly in the format that the client needs. The more fluent you are technically, the less helpless you feel when something changes. And helplessness is a major source of session panic. You don't need to be an engineer, but you do need enough command of your environment and your system that it feels like you know what you're doing, and not something that's happening to you. And that principle holds regardless of where you're working. The less mental energy you spend managing the technical environment, the more you have for the performance. So get the technical side sorted and be confident with it. Number 8. If you mess up, recover normally. You will stumble. Everyone does. You'll fluff a line, trip over a sentence, lose your place, or feel your brain go blank on a phrase you had mastered 10 minutes before. That isn't a catastrophe. What matters is recovery. You don't need to turn it into a drama. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to explain that you're usually better than this. Just reset and go again. A calm recovery is much more impressive than a panicked one. Clients are generally fine with human moments. What they want is flow. So if something slips, sorry, let me take that again. Then take it again. Done. The faster you return to usefulness, the less emotional weight the mistake carries. Number 9. Silence in the room isn't always a bad thing. You do a take, then there's silence. No immediate praise, no instant note, no great, perfect, love it, just silence. Don't rush to fill that silence. When the room goes quiet, give it a moment. Someone is thinking, comparing, or waiting for the person with final say to say something. In a pro studio, the engineer and the director may be reviewing the take together without comment. On a remote call, someone may have just gone on mute. None of this is failure. A good trait to develop is being comfortable with not instantly knowing what the silence means. Let the room have its moment and then stay ready. Number 10. Directed sessions are often about trust, not flair. The artists who get called back for directed sessions are not always the flashiest. They're often the ones who are the easiest to trust. To sound good, to listen, to adjust, to stay calm, to not crumble when the room gets indecisive, and to not become precious about the performance. That kind of trust is gold, and it's why live session skill has such a strong link to repeat business. A client may like your demo, a client may love your voice, but if you're hard to direct, tense under pressure, or technically messy in a session, that memory will linger. On the other hand, if the session felt smooth, collaborative, and calm, they remember that, often much more than the script you actually read. Number 11. You're allowed to have instincts. Directable and empty are two very different things. You're still bringing your instincts, your taste, your timing, your interpretive skill. There's a meaningful difference between waiting for instructions and actively listening for what the room needs. You do a take, you read what the room needs, you adapt, and if needed, you offer another take. That's helpful. That's active. So stay open, but don't erase yourself completely. Clients aren't booking you purely as a vocal instrument. They can get anybody. They're also booking your judgment and authentic self as well. Number 12. A hidden skill, emotional regulation. A lot of what makes someone good in live sessions is emotional regulation. Can you stay composed when the room shifts? Can you hear a note without taking it personally? Can you stay flexible when the direction becomes less clear? Can you handle the feeling of being watched without overmanaging yourself? Live direction isn't only a vocal task, it's a nervous system task. And the good news is that it responds to practice. Every session you stay steady under pressure is doing something to you mentally. The calmer your nervous system, the better your choices. 13. When the room does not know what it wants. This will happen, probably more than once. You'll probably find yourself in a session where the client is clearly reacting but cannot yet articulate the target or the note. This is where patience matters. So don't become frustrated or just do random versions of the script. And especially don't make the room feel guilty for not knowing. Uncertainty is quite normal in creative work. It isn't a commentary on your performance. What helps in these moments is structure. So offer small pieces of advice. Clarify the emotional need. You could say something like, let me give you one more that's a little more grounded and one that's a little more lifted, and then we can fine-tune from there. It moves the room without taking it over. Number 14. What confidence really sounds like. In a live session, confidence usually sounds like this: a grounded first take, a calm response to notes, a quick adjustment, a useful clarifying question when needed, a steady tone, no defensive explaining, no visible panic, no overperforming, no collapse when the room gets messy. Confidence is quiet. And I think that's encouraging because what looks like confidence from the outside is mostly a collection of small repeatable habits, which means it can be practiced. Every session where you take a note without flinching, recover from a stumble without drama, or stay steady when the room figures itself out, that's a rep. You're building the muscle, and over time, the things that used to rattle you simply stop having the same grip. Lastly, number 15. After the session still counts. The session isn't fully over when the last line is recorded. How you end it also matters. Before anyone leaves or drops off the call, confirm what is being delivered. What files, what format, what naming convention, what turnaround. If you're in a pro studio, your engineer will probably handle all of this. If there were pickups discussed during the session, make sure those are clearly noted and not just assumed. If there were pronunciation decisions or tone preferences or script versions that need to carry through, make sure you marked your script to reflect them. Thank the team. If you're in a pro studio, thank the engineer. Stay friendly and professional. A clean, professional ending reinforces the entire experience. Clients will remember sessions that finished clearly just as much as sessions that started well. Again, this sounds basic, but basic things done consistently well build the kind of trust that keeps you on the shortlist for work. Before we wrap up, I want to flag 3 mistakes that tend to do the most damage in live sessions, and that are easy to miss precisely because they don't feel dramatic in the moment. The first one is reading the note literally without understanding the intent. If a client says more energy and you simply get louder, you have addressed the surface of the note but possibly missed the point entirely. What they likely want is more forward motion, more engagement, more presence, not necessarily more volume. Decoding direction, as we covered earlier, is where sessions are won or lost. The second mistake is letting the room's uncertainty become your uncertainty. When people disagree or when the brief shifts mid-session, there's a natural pull to absorb that tension and start second-guessing everything. Resist that. Keep doing your part well. When the room is uncertain, that's a creative process in motion. It rarely has anything to do with you. Stay steady and help the room find its footing through your consistency. And the third mistake is speaking too much between takes. A brief acknowledgement of a note, then action, is almost always more professional than a long explanation of what you're about to try. The room wants results. Give them results. You can reflect on your choices when the session is over. That said, if you're working with a really good engineer, they'll often give you natural breaks of little conversations between takes when they feel you need a break. Again, your engineer is your closest ally in a live session. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. If directed sessions still make you tense, part of your practice should include being directed, not just reading alone or recording demos. Get into spaces where someone can give you notes in real time. Workout groups, coaching sessions, mock directed sessions with peers, cold read practice with feedback. Anything that gets you used to hearing a note and changing your voice to implement it. Because that's a muscle. The more you build it in lower stakes settings, the less dramatic it'll feel in a paid session. A live directed session isn't a pressure chamber you need to survive. It's a collaborative room you can learn to navigate. And the artists who do well in those rooms are not always the ones with the biggest voices or the boldest choices. They're often the ones who are prepared, calm, adaptable, and easy to trust. They know how to arrive ready. They know how to sketch an intelligent first read. They know how to hear the note beneath the note. They know how to adjust. they know how to stay steady when the room gets uncertain, and they know how to make the session feel easier for everyone else. That's a serious skill, and it's one worth developing, because once you become the kind of voice who handles live direction well, everything changes a little. You stop fearing the room. You stop hearing every note as criticism. You stop trying to protect yourself from being wrong, and you start becoming what clients really value: a pro collaborator and someone who can carry the moment with them instead of being overwhelmed by it. That's where confidence lives, knowing how to stay useful when the red light is on and the room is listening. And that's all for this week's episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and my support team at support@voiceme.co.za. Leave a comment here or give me a call on 0861 VoiceMe. That's 0861 864 2363 if you're in South Africa. And to sign up for a VoiceMe profile, register from the homepage at voiceme.co.za. If you liked this episode, please like, share, subscribe, turn on automatic downloads, or click the bell icon to get notified so you don't miss our next one. Like, follow, and engage with VoiceMe on @VoiceMeSA on all social networks. I'm Andrew Sutherland, and that's it from me here at VoiceMe for this week. Cheers for now.